What happens when a player's success becomes too expensive to keep? It's the cruel irony of professional sports. Sometimes doing everything right still isn't enough. Kiefer Sherwood has been nothing short of sensational for the Vancouver Canucks this season, transforming from depth piece to difference maker. Yet that very success might price him right out of town. According to TSN's Darren Dreger, despite Sherwood's career-best performance, contract extension talks haven't materialized, and the 30-year-old forward could become a legitimate trade chip as the deadline approaches. Welcome to the business side of hockey, where breakout seasons can lead to breakups. Let's establish the facts. Kiefer Sherwood has already potted 12 goals this season, a career high that shattered his previous benchmarks. For a player who's spent most of his NHL tenure as a bottom-six energy guy, this offensive explosion represents a complete transformation. His shooting percentage continues hovering above 30%, an unsustainable but undeniably impressive mark that speaks to both hot hands and improved finishing ability. But Sherwood's value extends far beyond the scoresheet. His physical presence has become foundational to Vancouver's bottom-six identity. He throws his body around with reckless abandon, finishes checks with authority, and brings an edge that playoff-bound teams crave. Fans have literally chanted his name during home games at Rogers Arena, the kind of organic connection between player and fanbase that money can't buy, but ironically, money might destroy. The Canucks faithful have watched countless players come and go, but there's something special about a late bloomer who maximizes his opportunity. Sherwood represents the dream. Work hard, stay ready, and when your numbers call, deliver. He's done exactly that. And now he might be rewarded with a one-way ticket out of Vancouver. Here's where sentiment crashes into spreadsheets. Industry insiders are projecting Sherwood's next contract could land somewhere in the $4 million per year range over 4 years. That's $16 million committed to a player who turns 31 next season and has never scored 20 goals in a single campaign. For context, that's the same annual salary range as established middle six contributors and proven playoff performers. General manager Patrick Alvin faces a mathematical nightmare. Vancouver's salary cap situation is tight, with significant money already allocated to core pieces. Every dollar matters, and committing $4 million annually to Sherwood means $4 million that can't be spent elsewhere on defense, goaltending depth, or younger forwards with longer runways. The uncomfortable truth? Sherwood is playing himself into a payday the Canucks may not be able to afford. His agent, Judd Moldaver, has had informal conversations with Vancouver's front office, but Dreger reports there haven't been official negotiations. That silence speaks volumes. If the Canucks were confident about retaining Sherwood, wouldn't talks be further along? Dreger highlighted another critical factor. Vancouver has a surplus of wingers. This isn't a complaint, it's a luxury problem that contending teams dream about. But luxury problems still require solutions, and sometimes the solution involves difficult decisions. When you're deep at a position, the value of any individual player decreases relative to organizational need. Sherwood might be having a career year, but if the Canucks believe they have adequate internal replacements, younger, cheaper options who can provide 70% of Sherwood's production at 20% of the cost, the math starts favoring a trade. Consider the return Vancouver could command. A 30-year-old winger scoring at a career-best pace, playing with snarl and physicality, on an expiring contract? That's catnip for playoff-bound teams looking to add depth scoring and sandpaper for a postseason run. The Canucks could potentially acquire draft picks, prospects, or roster players who address more pressing needs. Teams like Carolina, Dallas, or even Toronto, yes, the Maple Leafs are always hunting for depth forwards with bite, could come calling with compelling offers. If a contender offers a second-round pick plus a prospect, does Vancouver say no? What about a young defenseman with upside? Suddenly, trading Sherwood isn't about his performance. It's about maximizing organizational assets. This is where hockey operations get messy. Analytically, trading Sherwood before he walks for nothing in free agency makes perfect sense. Emotionally, shipping out a fan favorite in the middle of a career year feels like betrayal. Imagine being Sherwood. You've spent years grinding in the minors, bouncing between organizations, fighting for every roster spot. Finally, at 30, everything clicks. You're scoring, you're physical, the fans adore you, and your reward is being shopped around like a rental car? The business is brutal, but it's still business. From Vancouver's perspective, loyalty is expensive. They can't afford to make decisions based on sentiment when cap space is precious and championship windows are finite. If trading Sherwood helps them address weaknesses elsewhere, perhaps bolstering their blue line or adding goaltending insurance, then the move becomes justifiable, even necessary. Yet there's risk in this calculation. What if Sherwood's production isn't a fluke? What if he's genuinely evolved into a consistent 15 to 20 goal scorer who can maintain this level for 3 more seasons? Trading him could look catastrophically short-sighted if he continues producing for another team while Vancouver struggles to replace his contributions. As March approaches, Patrick Allvin will field countless calls about Sherwood. Every conversation will force him to weigh present success against future flexibility, fan sentiment against financial reality, and known production against uncertain returns. The most likely scenario? Vancouver tests the market aggressively. If a team offers significant value, multiple assets that address organizational needs, Sherwood gets moved. If the offers underwhelm, they might gamble on a playoff run with him in the lineup and deal with free agency later. There's also the possibility of a sign-and trade, though those are notoriously difficult to execute. Sherwood would need to agree to terms with another organization before being traded, and that requires a level of coordination and trust that's rare in deadline deals. What we know for certain is this: Kiefer Sherwood has earned himself a substantial payday. Whether that payday comes from Vancouver or elsewhere remains the season's most intriguing subplot. He's done everything asked of him and more, yet his reward might be a new address. The Kiefer Sherwood situation encapsulates everything complicated about modern NHL roster management. A player performs beyond expectations, becomes beloved by fans, and earns a significant contract, but the team that developed him might not be able to afford the finished product. It's not fair, but fairness isn't part of the salary cap equation. Allvin must make decisions that optimize Vancouver's championship chances, even if those decisions are unpopular. Sherwood deserves to be paid for his performance. The Canucks deserve to maximize their assets. Sometimes, those two truths can't coexist. As the trade deadline approaches, watch this situation closely. Sherwood's next goal might be his last in a Canucks uniform, and every physical hit might be his final contribution to a team that gave him his career-defining opportunity. The business of hockey waits for no one, not even the players who've earned their moment in the spotlight. What do you think the Canucks should do with Kiefer Sherwood? Should they pay the man for his breakout season, or cash in while #Canucks Insider report is Vancouver about to make the most painful trade decision of the season? Picture this. A 30-year-old journeyman finally breaks through, becomes a fan favorite, delivers game-changing performances night after night, and then gets shipped out at the deadline. Sounds cruel, doesn't it? Yet that's the cold, calculated reality facing the Vancouver Canucks and their breakout star Kiefer Sherwood. This isn't just another trade rumor. This is a franchise standing at a crossroads between loyalty and ruthless asset management. Welcome back to the channel, where we dissect the stories that matter most in the hockey world. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most emotionally conflicting scenarios unfolding in Vancouver: the potential trade of Kiefer Sherwood, a player who's given everything to this team and might get nothing but a one-way ticket out of town in return. Let's establish the facts first. Kiefer Sherwood has been nothing short of sensational this season. 12 goals already. 12. For context, this is a player who never sniffed 20 goals in a single campaign throughout his entire career. His shooting percentage sits comfortably above 30%, an unsustainable number by traditional metrics, yet he keeps defying expectations. He's transformed from a depth piece, a fourth liner at best, into a legitimate impact player who changes the complexion of games. His physical presence has become foundational to Vancouver's bottom six forward group. He throws his body around, creates turnovers generates offensive chances from pure hustle, and brings an intensity that's infectious. The Rogers Arena faithful have literally chanted his name during games, a rare honor reserved for true fan favorites. In a market as passionate and demanding as Vancouver, earning that level of adoration speaks volumes. But here's where the fairy tale takes a dark turn. According to TSN's Darren Dreger, despite some informal conversations between the Canucks organization and Sherwood's agent Judd Moldaver, there have been zero official contract extension negotiations. None. And the kicker? There might not be any negotiations coming anytime soon. Why? Because Vancouver finds itself in what management types love to call a good problem. They're absolutely stacked on the wings. Too many bodies, too few roster spots, and not enough cap space to keep everyone happy. When you're overflowing with talent at a particular position, someone becomes expendable. Unfortunately for Sherwood, his late career breakout might have come at the worst possible time. Let's talk dollars and cents, or perhaps the lack thereof. Industry insiders are projecting Sherwood's next contract to land somewhere in the neighborhood of $4 million annually over a 4-year term. That's $16 million committed to a player who just turned 30 and has never scored 20 goals in a season. Now, before you accuse me of being heartless, understand the position Vancouver's front office occupies. They're not running a charity, they're managing a salary cap in one of the most unforgiving financial structures in professional sports. Every dollar matters, every commitment carries risk, and committing $4 million per year to a player experiencing a career year at age 30 represents significant risk. The harsh reality? Career years are called career years for a reason. They're outliers, statistical anomalies that rarely repeat. Sherwood's shooting percentage will regress. It has to. The laws of probability demand it. When it does, will he still be worth $4 million? Will he even be worth $3 million? These are the questions keeping Patrick Allvin and the Canucks management team awake at night. And here's the truly painful part. Dreger explicitly stated that Sherwood could very well become a legitimate trade item as the deadline approaches. Translation: Vancouver is actively considering cashing in on Sherwood's elevated value right now, at his absolute peak, before reality sets in and his market value potentially craters. From a pure asset management perspective, trading Sherwood makes cold, calculated sense. His value has never been higher. Contending teams desperate for depth scoring and physical presence will be lining up with offers. The Canucks could potentially extract a significant return, maybe a second-round pick, maybe a quality prospect, maybe even a roster player who fills a more pressing need. Vancouver's depth on the wings means they can theoretically absorb Sherwood's departure without catastrophic consequences. They have bodies to slot in, they have younger players who need opportunities, they have cap constraints that demand difficult decisions. Trading Sherwood checks multiple boxes simultaneously. It brings back assets, it creates roster flexibility, and it avoids the risk of a potentially disastrous long-term contract. But hockey isn't played on spreadsheets. Games aren't won by algorithms. And locker rooms don't rally around asset management strategies. Here's what the analytics can't measure: Sherwood's impact on team culture, his work ethic, his willingness to do the dirty work that doesn't show up on highlight reels. The message it sends to the rest of the roster when you trade away a guy who's done everything asked of him and more. Imagine being Kiefer Sherwood right now. You've spent years in the minors, bouncing between organizations, never quite getting the opportunity to prove yourself. Finally, at 30 years old, you get your shot, and you absolutely seize it. You become everything a coach could want: productive, physical, reliable, beloved. You're living the dream, playing the best hockey of your life. And then your reward might be getting traded to a team you didn't choose, to a city you don't know, away from teammates who've become brothers. All because you made yourself too valuable. It's the ultimate cruel irony of professional sports. The fans will be devastated if this trade happens. Social media will explode with fury. Talk radio will be flooded with angry callers questioning management's commitment to winning. And somewhere in the middle of it all will be Kiefer Sherwood, a victim of his own success. This isn't the first time we've seen this movie. and it won't be the last. Professional sports are littered with stories of beloved players traded at their peak value. It's the nature of the business. But that doesn't make it any easier to stomach, especially when the player in question represents everything fans claim to value: heart, hustle, and hometown heroism. The Canucks find themselves in playoff contention, fighting for positioning in a brutally competitive Pacific Division. Trading away a contributor like Sherwood carries immediate risk. What if the return doesn't pan out? What if the chemistry disruption affects team performance? What if Sherwood goes to a rival and haunts Vancouver in a playoff series? These scenarios keep general managers up at night, second-guessing every decision, weighing every possible outcome. There's no perfect answer here, only varying degrees of risk and reward. As we approach the trade deadline, the pressure intensifies. Other teams are calling. Offers are being made. Sherwood continues producing, his value climbing with every goal, every hit, every shift. The Canucks must decide: do they reward loyalty and bet on continued production, or do they make the hard-nosed business decision and maximize return? If they choose to extend Sherwood, they're betting that his production sustains, that his physical style doesn't lead to injury, that he's worth $4 million in his mid-30s. If they trade him, they're betting that the return exceeds his value to the current roster, that the locker room absorbs the loss, that fans eventually forgive the decision. Neither path is without peril. Both carry consequences that will reverberate for years. Kiefer Sherwood deserves better than this uncertainty. He's earned the right to know where he stands, to plan his future, to enjoy the fruits of his breakout season without the constant specter of trade rumors hanging overhead. But professional hockey is a business first, and sentiment rarely factors into front office calculations. The most likely scenario? Vancouver explores the trade market aggressively, gauges Sherwood's value, and makes a decision based purely on return. If someone offers a package too good to refuse, Sherwood will be packing his bags. If the offers disappoint, they might circle back to extension talks. But even then, at a price they're comfortable with, not necessarily what Sherwood's performance merits. It's a sobering reminder that in professional sports, no amount of heart, hustle, or fan adoration guarantees security. You're only as valuable as your next contract negotiation, only as safe as your team's salary cap situation allows. Kiefer Sherwood is playing for his future right now, every single shift. The tragedy is that his future might be somewhere else, despite doing everything right in Vancouver. What do you think, hockey fans? Should the Canucks reward Sherwood's incredible season with a contract extension, or is trading him at peak value the smart business move? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear where you stand on this emotional versus analytical debate. And if you're enjoying this deep dive analysis, smash that like button and let's keep this conversation going. The trade deadline is approaching fast, and stories like Sherwood's remind us why we love this game and why it breaks our hearts.